Tonight, we're going to talk about a young man who had a metamorphosis in his life. He had a drastic transformation that took place in his life. He started out being a petted, pampered daddy's baby. His dad spoiled him, petted on him, did everything for him. He had an easy life. Grew up on a farm out in the middle of the countryside. And through a series of events, he eventually became the leader of a nation. His name was Joseph. There were 5 words in Genesis chapter 37, verse 5, that I believe were life-changing for Joseph. Literally, life-changing, life-transforming words. And those 5 words are the first 5 words of this verse. It says, "And Joseph dreamed a dream." This is a profound story. For Joseph to go all the way from being a spoiled daddy's baby to being the leader of a nation. And it all started with a dream. I want to talk to you tonight about dreams. And I want to talk to you about how that a dream can change your life. You need to have a dream in your life. You must have a dream in your life. Here was Joseph. He was the baby brother. He was the little brother. All of his big brothers were out in the field, taking care of the livestock, doing everything on the family farm. And Joseph was home with his dad, and his dad pampered him and petted him, and he took care of him, had him a special custom-made coat, and had everything that went his way. Joseph was probably disliked by his brothers because of that. I can imagine that he would have been disliked by his brothers because of that, because that they were jealous of the way that their dad looked after him and took care of the baby. He was the baby, and the baby always gets petted, and the baby always gets treated special. And so he, I mean, the fact of the matter is that parents should not love one child more than they love the other. If you're a parent, you know that you should love all your children exactly the same. You shouldn't treat them any differently. And I have 2 children, and I tell my children at least once a week, I tell them, Daddy loves both of you very, very, very much, and I love one of you just a little bit more than the other one, but I can't tell you which one it is. So, that's my part that I play in trying to build unity and harmony in our family. And so far I think it's doing really well. So, but Joseph's dad really did have a favorite. He really did play favorites with Joseph. And I'll tell you something, growing up, having everything going your way is not a real character-building experience. You tend to be spoiled rotten. No one wants to be around you. No one wants to have anything to do with you because you always get your way. And you don't know what it's like to not get your way. And so you become a thorn in everyone else's flesh. And I sometimes wonder if Paul's thorn in the flesh was a little brother named Joseph. But honestly, a person who has everything go their way does not tend to really mature and grow the way that they need to. Now, was Joseph a leader at that point? No, he wasn't even close to being a leader. He did not even resemble a leader. In fact, if they would have started killing leaders, Joseph would have been completely safe. Because he did not even look like a leader. He did not even sound like a leader. He did not even resemble a leader. Joseph was nowhere near being leadership material. But God gave him the dream of being a leader. Why? Because the first principle in any dream that you have is that the dream should be bigger than what you are today. The dream should be so big that there's no way that you can do it being the person you are right now. Because the real purpose behind the dream is to get you and me to grow, to get us to change, to get us to become what the dream put before us. You must understand that, because if your dream does not require change on your part, it's not big enough. If you can achieve your dream being the person you are right now, then the dream is too small. Does that make sense to you? If the dream could be achieved right now as you are, then it's too small. If your dream does not require you to get up at a different time in the morning, if it doesn't require you to hang around with different people, read different books, listen to different tapes, do different things, make changes in your habits, make changes in your lifestyle, make changes in your values, make changes in your goals, make changes in what you do from day to day. Make changes in the way that you make decisions. If your dream does not require you to make changes, then it's not big enough. If your dream does not give you a reward that is bigger than what you have right now, then the reward in your dream is not big enough. You need it to be a reward that makes it worth the sacrifice of getting there. Does that make sense to you? When God gave us the dream about heaven, He didn't say, now, the streets are paved with, well, actually, they're not all paved with the same thing. We ran out of materials and we're having to fill it in with some other stuff. Part of it is blacktop and part of it is actually cement. There's a few, the potholes, if you've heard about the potholes, it's not really that bad of a problem. The potholes are being taken care of, and within the next few months, we're going to have that problem remedied. And those streets are not really any of the main streets anyway. I wouldn't really worry about it. And the lighting on the street, we're having that looked into right now. And the fact that the lights come on in the day and go off at night, that can be fixed. That could be. I've been told that could be repaired. And actually, the walls are made of, well, they're not all made of the same. Again, we ran out of, some of the materials were back ordered. And so what we did was we put the nicest looking materials in the front walls, and then around in the back, nobody hardly goes back there anyway. And what we figured was we'll paint over it. You'll hardly be able to tell it at a distance. From a distance, it'll all look the same. It won't really look that bad. But anyway, and then there are mansions there. Well, mansion is really a relative term, if you know what I mean. I don't know what the word mansion, but to me, I think they're mansions. I don't know if in your definition, if you would call them mansions, but really, I feel that togetherness is the main thing, and I feel that, does everybody really need their own bedroom? I don't think so. So I think that really for us to have that closeness and together, and the plumbing situation, I feel that we are bringing in some people who are going to really be able to work out that plumbing problem, and we'll have that fixed in the next couple of weeks. Now, if God described a heaven like that, would you really want to make sacrifices to get there? No. You'd say, well, I already live there. I don't need to make any I don't need to make any changes. That's where I live right now. That is exactly where I live. So, the reason that God described a heaven that was so grand and so glorious and so wonderful was because He wanted there to be a reward that made it worth the sacrifice of getting there. Because you and I were designed in such a way that we are reward-oriented. You can say anything you want to about that, but that's a fact. You and I are reward-oriented. The way that we do everything is we want to know what is the reward for doing it. That's the way we are. Even with your jobs, people say, well, I have a good job. Well, I don't even know if those words go together. But anyway, there was research done a while back, and they found that over 80% of all Americans hate their jobs. Now, if over 80% of all Americans hate their jobs, why do they keep going back to work? For the paycheck. For the paycheck. So if that's true, then the fact of the matter is you're reward-oriented. If they didn't pay you, you'd quit going to work. Is that right? You don't go to work for the fellowship. You don't go to work to meet friends. You go to work so you can get a paycheck. You are reward-oriented. That's why God gave us the ability to dream. The Bible says without a dream, without a vision, a people perish. What does that mean? That means that if you can't see something better on the other side, you'll die right here where you sit. You must have a dream if you're ever going to improve. There must be a vision. There must be a purpose. There must be a goal. There must be a challenge. There must be something out there that makes it worth the sacrifice, that makes it worth changing. If there's no reward for changing, then I'll stay like I am. Does that make sense to you? The only reason Joseph was going to change was because God gave him a dream that was bigger than the sacrifice. The reason God gave Joseph a dream was because he was not a leader. And God said the only way he'll ever become a leader is if I dangle it out in front of him. If I get him excited about being a leader. If I give him this vision, this dream. So God gives him a dream. And in the dream, Joseph is a haystack. And all of his brothers have haystacks. And all their haystacks bow down before his haystack. Gives him another dream where he's a star. And all of his brothers are stars. And his father's the sun. His mother's the moon. I think that's the way it was. Was that the way it was? His father's the sun, his mother's the moon, or something like that. And all of them bow down before him. And God said, that's your dream. So Joseph goes back and he tries to tell them and tries to tell everybody else about his dream. Let me explain something to you. Nobody's going to get as excited about your dream as you are. Why? Because it's not their dream. It's your dream. Don't go telling your dream to everybody else. They're not going to get excited for you. Now let me just go through something with you. There are three basic things that will try to steal your dreams. If you want to write these down, you can. The first thing that will try and steal your dreams is people. How many of you know that people will try to steal your dreams? Raise your hand if you know people will try and steal your dreams. Why will people try and steal your dreams? Well, there are two basic groups of people who will try and steal your dreams. The first group of people who will try to steal your dreams from you are people who genuinely love you. They just don't have a clue. How many of you know somebody that may be a really nice person, but they don't have a clue? Raise your hand if you know somebody who does not. How many of you know what a clue is? First of all, I'm not seeing a lot of response. How many of you know what a clue is? I'm getting a little bit worried here. How many of you know someone who does not have a clue? Raise your hand if you know someone who does not have a clue. All right, this is a condition we refer to as acluistic. Acluistic. It means one having no clue, okay? Having no clue. Acluistic. That is my word. Don't look for it in the dictionary. It's not in the dictionary. That's my word, acluistic. But if someone is acluistic, that means they have no clue. They don't have a clue. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Now, if you look for it in the dictionary, it means that you are. Okay. If you were to find it in the dictionary, it would say, see mirror. But anyway, there are people in your life who genuinely love you. They just don't have a clue. They're acluistic. Do you hear what I'm saying? How many of you know what I'm talking about? They really don't understand. And you'll have people who will come up. See, when Joseph went and told his dad his dreams, his dad says, son, I love you. In fact, I love you more than all the other sons combined. You're my favorite. But son, as much as I want to believe God that this is going to happen in your life, I just really don't see it. I just don't see you being elevated to a position. Understand, in the Jewish family, the youngest son was never elevated above the eldest son, and particularly was never elevated above his father and his mother. And for him to have a dream where he's going to be elevated above his father, his mother, and all of his elder brothers, that was unthinkable. And his father says, son, as much as I love you, and as much as I want your dreams to come true, I just can't see it. I just can't see it. There are some people that when you tell them your dreams, they'll pat you on your head. And they'll say, you know, we really love you, but we just don't want you to get your hopes up. You ever have everybody tell you don't get your hopes up? How many of you ever had somebody tell you don't get your hopes up? Don't get your, we just don't want you to get your hopes up. We don't want you to be disappointed if things don't turn out right. Just don't get your hope. We just don't want you to get your hopes up. Just don't get your hopes up. You better get your hopes up. You better hang on to your hopes. You know why? Because I found out that's the stuff they make faith from. Hope is the stuff that faith is made from. And you better hang on to hope, because when you don't have faith, hope will keep you going till your faith gets there. Yeah. You better hang on to your hopes. You better get your hopes up. Somebody said, well, but what if everything doesn't go right? And what if things don't work? And what if something goes wrong? What if something goes wrong and things just don't go right? What if how many of you know there's people like this in the world? They're so negative, if you put them in a dark room, they develop. You know, I mean, it's like, what if something goes wrong? Oh, you mean like you coming over? Oh, well, that already happened. So, but I mean, there are people who will do that. They will come to you and they'll only, you show them the silver lining, they'll find the cloud. You know, I mean, they are looking for depression, they are looking for anxiety, they're looking for worry. They get worried if they don't have anything to worry about, because they need to worry, because worry is their comfort. And if I'm worried because I know I should be worrying about something and I'm not worried about anything, so that means there's something that should be worried about that's not being worried about. And they're just so negative and they worry so much and they're so frustrated that they'll just take the dreams right out of your life if you'll let them. And they'll do it in love. They will do it in love. They love you so much that they're afraid of you being too positive. How can you be too positive? I have people tell me sometimes, they say, well, Mark, you know, it's really cruel for you to go and preach about success and dreams and goals and get people all stirred up about what they can achieve in their life. I had somebody tell me this just recently. They said, it's really cruel what you do. I said, what do you mean it's cruel? They said, well, you're going over here and you're getting all these people all stirred up about everything they can achieve and everything they can accomplish. And what if they don't accomplish it? What if they don't achieve their dreams? What if they don't arrive at that dream? And here you've gotten them all stirred up about their dreams. They may die having never achieved it. I said, yes, they may die having never achieved it. And I understand that some of them will not achieve their dreams. But the fact of the matter is that if I can get them pointed in the direction of a dream or a goal or a purpose for their life, that means that they will wake up every morning with a purpose in their heart. They will have a purpose in their step, every step they take, that they will have lived their life heading towards something. They will have lived their life with a significance to life. Their life will have achieved something. No, they may not have arrived at the goal, but they will be a lot closer to it than they would have been if they would have never had a goal and if they would have never had a dream. And they will die a better man than they were when they were born. They will die a better man than they were when they first arrived at having a dream in their life. Why? Because they will have been headed towards something. They will have had a smile on their face. They will have had the joy in their heart every day of knowing I'm headed somewhere. I have a purpose in life. I'm going somewhere with my life. And yes, they may not achieve their dream, but at least they will die knowing they have accomplished something with their life. Don't tell me it's wrong for me to get people excited about dreams, because dreamers achieve more than non-dreamers. Did you know that? There's a study done recently that's found that less than 3% of all Americans have goals and dreams that are so well defined that they've written them down. Why? Because people are afraid to commit themselves to a dream. They don't want to write it down. They want to have it in their head. They want to have nice thoughts about it when they get depressed, but they don't want to write it down, because when you write it down, now you got to do it. That's like people who don't tell you they're on a diet till they start losing weight. I want to see if I'm going to stick with this thing first before I tell anybody I'm on the diet. Because then if I tell them I'm on the diet and I don't stick with it, then they're going to make me stick with it. It's like the guy that came forward and told the pastor. The pastor was praying for people across the front of the church. And the pastor comes up to him and he says, what do you want me to pray with you about? He said, I'm going to quit smoking. The pastor said, great. He runs up to the platform and the guy says, wait a minute, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm going to go up here and get the microphone and tell everybody you're going to quit smoking. He said, don't do that, then I really have to. See, what we need to understand is that committing yourself to the dream by writing it down gets you that much more committed to achieving it. Does this make sense to you? You need to write it down. You need to make a commitment to it. There was a study done at Harvard University in 1953, if I remember correctly, 1953. How many of you heard of Harvard? You know what Harvard is? All right. Harvard is not a junior college, okay? You got to be good to get into Harvard. How many of you know what I'm talking about? I mean, people don't say, well, they turned me down at Votech, so I went to Harvard. You know, I mean, you got to be good. You know what I'm saying? You got to be good to get into Harvard, and you got to be even better to get out. And these people didn't just get in, they were getting out. They were graduating. This is the 1953 graduating class, Harvard University. They did a study. They did a survey on them, and they found that 2% of the entire graduating class had goals and dreams that were so well defined that they'd written them out. The other 98% were obviously motivated people. These were people who were motivated enough that they had already graduated from Harvard University. So we know that they were goal-oriented people. They were achievers, or they would have never gotten that far. But yet they had never felt that it was necessary to write down their dreams. Some of you are going to listen to me tonight. You're going to go home and not write down your dreams. I'm going to tell you to write them down. I'm going to tell you that you need to go home. You need to write down your dreams. You need to write down your goals. You need to write down dreams about your family, dreams about your finances, dreams about your spiritual life, dreams about what you want to achieve in your personal life, what kind of a person you want to become, dreams about how many books you want to read next year, dreams about how much you want to accomplish and achieve in all these different areas of your life. I'm going to tell you. I'm telling you right now, you need to go home and write them down, but most of you won't. You're not going to write them down. You say, oh yeah? Oh yeah? What if we do? Well, you're not going to ruin my life if you do. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. 100% of you do it. That'll be fine with me. It's not going to bother me if 100% of you go home and write them down. I'm just telling you, most of you won't. You say, oh, well, that's negative. No, I'm positive. But in 1973, 1973, 20 years later, they followed up on every graduate of the 1953 graduating class, Harvard University. 20 years later, to see what they'd achieved. Guess what they found out? The 2% who had written down their goals and dreams had achieved more than the other 98%. Are you impressed? How did they achieve more? Because they knew where they were headed, so they got there. If you leave not knowing where you're headed, who knows where you'll end up? You won't get as much achieved. You'll spend half your time trying to figure out where you're going. Find out where you're headed and write it down. People will try and steal that from you. The second group of people who try and steal your dreams are non-dreamers who are jealous. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Non-dreamers are convinced that you're going to achieve your dream. Now, they'll tell you there's no way. They will look you in the eyes and they will say, you know what? I know you. I grew up with you. There is no way you can achieve what you just told me you want to achieve. There's no way you're going to do that. You need to just give up on that right now. I can't believe that you would think you can do that. They will tell you there's no way you can achieve it, but deep down, they know you can, and they know you will, and they're afraid that you will because it's going to show up their laziness. It's going to show up their lack of dreaming. It's going to show up the fact that they're not as motivated as you are about what they want to achieve in their lives, and therefore, you are an indictment against them. And so they're going to try and tear you down and cut you down. I have seen people who will allow their family and so-called friends to tear them down in front of everybody else about their dreams. Go home for Thanksgiving, have a big Thanksgiving meal with the whole family sitting around, and somebody sit across the table from him and say, oh, yeah, did you hear about Joe? Yeah, Joe's going to really be something. Did you hear about what he's dreaming? Oh, man, yeah, he's going to be a big, oh, he thinks he's better than the rest of us. He thinks he's better than, oh, he thinks he's a big, oh, yeah, he thinks he's better than us. Now, you never said you were better than them. Why do they think you're better than them? Because they know that if you achieve that dream, you are a better man than they are. They know that. So they say, he thinks he's better than that. And I've seen people sit there and let somebody take their dreams and tear them up into little tiny pieces in front of everybody. Sprinkle them all over the table in front of everybody else and spit on them. Just make them look like a fool. And just sit there and let it happen. You say, well, should I fight them? No, you shouldn't fight them. You should be big enough to get up and walk away. Excuse yourself from the table and leave. Don't sit there and let somebody dump on your dreams. Now, let me tell you something, though. The same people who will sit there and let somebody tear up your dreams and make you look like a fool in front of everybody else, if that person stole your car, you'd chase them halfway down the street, yelling things about their mama and everything else. But now think about this. Think about this. Your car can take you to the grocery store and back, but your dreams can take you anywhere. If you let them take anything, let them take the car. Hang on to your dreams. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? Hang on to your dreams. Hang on to your dreams. Don't let somebody steal your dreams just because they're a non-dreamer. Why let a negative person dictate your future? Everybody wants you to succeed, just a little bit less than them. Not everybody's that way. Some of them want you to succeed a lot less than them. Yeah. But most of them, they want you to succeed a little bit less than them. Don't expect somebody else to come along and say, oh, yes, I'm sure you'll show me up. Oh, no, that's great. No, you're my little brother. I'm your big... Oh, no, I know that I should be achieving more than... But I think it's wonderful that you're going to achieve more than me and make me look like a fool. No, I think that's great. I've always wanted to look like an idiot. No, really. I've always wanted to look like a low-life scoundrel, do-nothing, lazy person who never achieved anything. No, I think it'd be great for you to achieve something great and me to be an absolute joke of the society. No, that would be good. That's fine. No, I want to encourage you.
This is the end of Side 1. Please turn the cassette over for the continuation of this program.
If you think somebody's going to tell you that, you need to wake up. Now, the second thing that tried to steal Joseph's dreams, first thing was people, second thing tried to steal his dreams was life. Life. How many of you know life's not fair? Rest of it's a good thing you came tonight because you need to know that. Life's not fair. Life's not fair to anybody. And when I say life's not fair to anybody, I mean anybody. The original Greek for anybody is anybody. So life's not fair to anybody. Okay? Life has been unfair to all of us. Life was not designed to make you a success. You are not going to be a success simply because you were born. Amen. You're going to be a success because you push against the odds, because you fight back, because you go against the tide, because you swim upstream, because life is designed to pull you down. Life is designed, the forces in life are designed to tear you up. They're designed to keep you down, to suppress you, to keep you from being a success. And if you're going to achieve success in anything in your life, if you're going to have a successful marriage, it's going to be because you fight for it. If you're going to have a successful home life, it's going to be because you fight for it. If you're going to be a success in business, it's because you fight for it. It's not because that you sit around and just get into business and business happens for you. It's because you make a decision. You make a conscious choice. I want to be a success with my life, and I'm going to make the sacrifices necessary to get there. I have a dream, and I'm not lazy. If you can say those two things honestly about yourself, you can get somewhere in life. If you can say, I've got a dream, and I'm not lazy. Because life is going to fight you. Life is going to come at you with disappointments. Life's going to come at you with frustrations. Everything is not always going to go right for you. Some things will go wrong. That's just the way life works out. You have to accept that. Don't think that you're the Lone Ranger when things go wrong for you. It frustrates me when I hear people look at someone who is successful and they turn around and say, must be nice. You ever hear people say that? Must be nice, has that big old car and that big old nice house, and must be nice, wear them nice clothes, and yeah, must be nice, has that big old church and big old balcony and big old stage and everything. No, we don't have that. Oh, must be nice. You know, he just sort of lucked into it, I guess. Must be nice. And must be nice to have that kind of a life like you have. Must be nice, you know, this, that, and other thing. You know, it just aggravates me. I just want to how often slap them, man. I mean, you know, because let me tell you something. Life hasn't been fair to anybody. And I want to turn around and ask them, what must be nice? Exactly what must be nice? The sacrifices those people were making while you were out bowling with the boys, the sacrifices they were making while you were home watching TV, building up the muscle in your right thumb on that remote control, that must be nice. For the average American male, the strongest muscle in our body is the right thumb. Remote control, buddy. You hear what I'm saying? What must be nice? The times that they kept on pressing forward with all the negative coming against them, and you gave up and quit and took the easier road, that must be nice. Let me tell you something. Nobody achieves success without a sacrifice. Nobody achieves success without going against the odds. Nobody achieves success without pressing forward. Nobody achieves success just merely because they exist. You achieve success because you set that as your goal. You write it down. You say, this is where I'm headed, and you press towards it with all that is within you, and you don't let anything stop you. Yes, things will go wrong. Yes, challenges will come your way. Yes, circumstances will happen that will seem to prevent you from achieving it, but you need to purpose in your heart, nothing's going to stop me. God gave me a dream, and I'm not lazy, and I'm going to get there. I may not get there when I wanted to, but I'll still get there. Amen. Man, Joseph got this dream. He's going to be a leader. His dad sends him out to find his brothers. When he goes out to find his brothers, they're in a place called Dothan. Now, the original Hebrew word for Dothan, the original meaning of the Hebrew word Dothan, is two wells. It speaks of refreshing. Dothan, two wells. Spanish word for two is dos. So Dothan is two wells. It means double blessing. It also means a double feast. Double blessing. So here's Joseph, and God gives him he's like, this is great. Yesterday, God gives me the dream that I'm going to be blessed, and I'm going to be a leader, and everything's going to go great. Today, I get sent to a place called double blessing. This is it. This is it. This is God. This is God. I just know I have this feeling deep down inside. This is it. So he gets over there. The two wells have dried up. They are now pits. He gets thrown into one of those dried up wells. It is now a prison for him. Have you ever found that sometimes the very thing you thought was going to be a source of blessing becomes a prison? Listen closely. God knew that as spoiled, rotten as Joseph was, the only way for him to become a leader was for him to have disappointments and discouragements and frustrations in his life. Why? Because the missing ingredient that makes men into leaders is character. Do you hear what I'm saying? I have parents tell me, "Oh, my child is a born leader." There's no such thing as a born leader. Now, your child may be a born manipulator, but that doesn't make him a leader. What's the difference between a manipulator and a leader? A manipulator gets people to do things for his benefit. A leader gets people to do things for their own benefit. Does that make sense to you? What's the difference between a leader and a manipulator? Character. And you were not born with character. You don't have character because your parents have character. Character's not contagious. You can't get it from drinking after somebody. You can't get character through osmosis. You can't find someone with character and lean up against them and get character. Character has to be developed in you. Character is manufactured on demand, and you are the manufacturing facility. It's built in you. Character is made and manufactured inside your life, and it's not manufactured when everything's going your way. Character is not developed in your life when you're on an all-expense-paid 2-week vacation to Hawaii. That's not when... I've never heard anyone say, "Well, the time that I really grew, the time that I really became the man that I am today was when I was lying out on the beach and rubbing suntan lotion on my chest, and the person came over and handed me the little drink in the coconut, and I was sitting there looking out on the waves, and that's when I really became the man that I am." I've never heard anybody say that, but you will hear people say, "Those tough times, that's when I became the man I am. The hard time, that disappointing circumstance that our family went through, the crisis that I faced, that's when I really became the man that I am today." God looked at Joseph. He says, "I know what it will take for him to become a leader. He'll have to be lied to, lied about, disappointed, go through loneliness, go through rejection, get his hopes built up and be disappointed again, have all kinds of things go wrong in his life. If he'll go through all of that waiting and frustration and disappointment, he'll become a leader." And then God said, "But who would go through all that?" He said, "I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give him a dream that's bigger than his greatest disappointment. I'll give him a dream that's greater than his greatest frustration. And if the dream is big enough, it'll keep him going even though the disappointment is there. He can look to the dream and keep pressing forward." Let me tell you something. If you see people who are always whining about how everything goes wrong for them, it frustrates me when people come up and say, "Well, I would be a success, but this happened, and then this happened, and then this other thing, and then there was this that happened, and then I got my hopes built up, and then that happened." And they want to tell you all the reasons that they didn't become a success. Let me tell you, the bottom line is this: if you want to, you will be. If you want to, you will be. Don't tell me all these things about what happened and why you can't and why you won't and why it never will happen for you, because it's not in the cards for you to be this, that, or it's not God's will for you to be a success. Let me tell you something. It's God's will for every one of us to be a success. God didn't design you for failure. God didn't design you for mediocrity. "My dream is to be mediocre. Every time I have an opportunity to improve myself, I pass it up. I go watch television because my dream is to just be average. So far, I've been pretty successful with it." And if you hear someone who is always complaining about this disappointment and that problem and that crisis and this person that let me down and everything else that went wrong, do you know what the problem is? Their dream is not big enough. Because if their dream was big enough, the disappointments wouldn't matter. They would keep pressing on anyway. They wouldn't let anything stop them. But the problem is they've gotten their eyes off the dream and they've gotten their eyes onto the circumstances and the problems and the negative. If they would get their eyes back on the dream, they would be able to press on through this thing. Does that make sense? So here's Joseph. He gets thrown in the pit. He's down in the pit. "Man, I knew it. I knew something wasn't right about this. I just knew it. I had this. I know I said I had that other feeling that this was the blessing and all that. But underneath that, I had this other feeling that I knew something wasn't right." In a few minutes, the rope gets lowered down into the pit. And they said, "Joseph, you're coming out." He said, "I'm coming out? This is great. God, you were just testing me, right? You were just making me wait. Now the blessing comes, right? I knew it. I knew all along this was it. I knew there was, I know I said that I knew that something was wrong, underneath that other feeling that I knew that everything, but like underneath that feeling, I had this other feeling, and I knew all along this was going to be okay. I knew this was going to be a blessing. So they pull him out of the pit and they said, you've just been sold as a slave. I knew it. He gets sold as a slave. Now, how do most slaves look? You know how most slaves do? They look down all the time. They never look up. Why? Because they're looking at the chains that are around their ankles. They think that's their future. Wherever you're looking is your future. Do you hear me? Wherever you're focused, that's your future. And why do they look down? Because they believe those chains around their ankles are their future. But Joseph didn't look down. Joseph had his head held up high. He walked like a leader. And people would come up to him and say, Joseph, you're a slave. You're supposed to have your head down. Oh, you don't understand. I'm a leader. And they're like, really? You're a leader? Let me get this straight, Joseph. Understand something. You're a slave. The chains around your ankles, that's a clue. You're a slave. He said, oh, but you don't understand. This is temporary. One day, I'm going to be a leader. I'm going to be a leader one of these days. God gave me a dream, and I'm going to be a leader. Let me tell you the key to achieving your dream. Act like your dream. Don't forget that. Act like your dream. Now hear that. Act like your dream. See, when your boss looks for somebody to promote to a new position, he doesn't look for the person who's the least productive. He looks to the person who's already acting like a leader, and he starts paying him like one. And if you will act like your dream, you will achieve your dream. And eventually, Joseph faced the third and last challenge I want to talk about, and I'm going to close with that. Time. Time will try and steal your dreams. For a lot of us, and listen to what I'm going to tell you, for a lot of us, when we were in high school, we had these huge dreams for our lives. In college, great dreams. Young marrieds, wonderful dreams. But the older you get, the smaller the dream gets. Remember your dream car in high school? After you've been married a few years, got a couple of kids, and all these bills and everything else, now your dream is just have a car that still runs after it's paid off. It just sort of shrinks, doesn't it? That dream just sort of shrinks right down. What's the deal? Time got the best of us. We became weary. Joseph eventually was thrown in a prison, and he had to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. And the waiting almost got the best of him, but he had to keep on telling himself. See, there's some of you that you said, I told myself last year that by this time this year I was going to have achieved this, and this, and I haven't achieved those things, and I'm getting tired of waiting. I'm just going to give up and accept where I am. Don't you dare give up. Don't you dare accept that. Don't let time get the best of you. It's a sure thing that if you quit, you'll never achieve it. I have a friend who lives in Australia. He's a self-made millionaire. Listen to his motto. It's a very simple motto, and when you hear it, you may even just rush right past it, not even realizing how profound it is. But listen to it. His motto is, and here's what he tells everybody if they want to be a success in their life. He's a self-made millionaire, started with nothing. And listen to what his motto is. If you don't quit, you'll make it. Now that seems so simple, doesn't it? It seems so simple that it doesn't even seem like it's very profound. But if you really listen to that, he's saying the key to it all is don't quit. Don't give up. Endurance is the key. Let me give you an example of that, and we'll close with this. My favorite story about a dream. I heard a tape by Jack Hyles one time that he said that when he went to Bible college, he went to a small Bible college in East Texas. And he said in this Bible college, most of the people there were there to study to be preachers. Some of them were not. And he said that any time that a new guy came on campus, all of the preacher guys would find out if he was there to study to be a preacher, and they would hang out together. All the preacher boys hung out together. And he said one day I was walking across the campus, and I saw a new guy. I'd never seen him before. And he said as I walked up to him, I said, hi, my name is Jack. What's your name? He said, my name is Joe. He said, excuse me? He said, my name is Joe. He said Joe had a terrible speech impediment. Really bad. You could barely understand him. He said, I I was sure that Joe would definitely not be there to study to be a preacher. I mean, if you had a speech impediment that bad, surely you wouldn't be trying to be a preacher. I mean, surely he was there to study, Christian education or something else, definitely not to be a preacher. So I asked him, I said, Joe, what are you here to study for? I'm studying for the ministry. Excuse me? I'm studying for the ministry. I'm going to be a preacher. You going to do what? I'm going to be a preacher. He said, man, I couldn't believe it. This guy with this terrible speech impediment wanted to be a preacher. Now, Joe couldn't help the fact that he had a speech impediment, but Jack said, I know that it was ugly what we did. He said, God didn't like it. It was not a Christian thing to do. God was ashamed of us for it. But he said, when Joe wasn't around, we'd make fun of him. He said, we wouldn't do it to his face, but when he wasn't around, we'd all make fun of him. We'd go up to each other and say, my name's Joe. I'm studying for the ministry. I'm going to be a preacher. Said, we all said that behind his back. We laughed and laughed and laughed about Joe, that Joe thought he was going to be a preacher, and here he had this horrible speech impediment. He said, one day we were all standing around, all the preacher boys, and Joe hung out with us, and he said we were all standing around talking, and he said, on every college campus, there's one girl who is more beautiful than any other girl on campus. He said, and the most beautiful girl on campus walked across just as we were talking. And, he said, we're all just standing there, just thanking God for sight, and I tell this story better than Jack Hiles does. But anyway, he said, she's walking across and we're all just gazing at her beauty. And he said, suddenly Joe says, you know what I'm going to do? I said, yeah, you're going to be freaking her. That's what you're going to do. He said, that's not all either. I'm going to marry her. He said, I couldn't believe it. I said, Joe, if I didn't know better, I'd think that you just said you're going to marry the most beautiful girl on campus, the girl that all the rest of us are afraid to even ask for a date. Did I hear you correctly? You got that right. That's exactly what I said. I said, I'm going to be a preacher and I'm going to marry her. That's exactly what I'm going to do. He said, oh, we laughed and laughed and laughed. We made fun of Joe. Oh, Joe's going to be a preacher and he's going to marry the most beautiful girl on campus. Oh, yeah, Joe's going to marry that most beautiful. Man, we laughed and laughed. He said Joe didn't say anything else. He just shut his mouth. He didn't talk about it anymore. That's the smartest thing you can do. They start making fun of your dream, just shut your mouth. Walk away. He said weeks went by. Joe hadn't said anything else about that girl. One day Joe walked up to Jack and told him he was ready to ask her for a date. That he knew that every Tuesday she got out of a certain class at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and she always came out a certain door and walked across the campus in a certain way, and she came across that certain sidewalk where that they had the garden area with the flowers and the shrubbery and the bushes and the park benches, and he was going to be standing right there in that garden area when she came through, and as she walked up to him, he was going to ask her for a date. So Jack went back and did the Christian thing and told all of his friends, he said, hey, if you want to watch Joe make a fool of himself, tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock, be over there by the park benches. Don't you know God was proud? He'd be over there at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon by the park benches, and Joe's going to ask the girl for a date. So 10 minutes till 2, all the preacher boys are huddled behind the bushes, waiting for Joe to make a fool of himself. There to encourage him, About 5 minutes till 2, along comes Joe. He's all spiffed up, slicked up, got his hair fixed real nice. He got his cologne on. He's looking good, and he's ready. A couple minutes after 2, the door opens. Now, Joe does not know all these preacher boys are huddled in the bushes. He has no idea they're there. So he's waiting there, and a couple minutes after 2, the door opens. Here he stands, right next to the park benches, right next to the flowers and the bushes, and she's across the campus coming out of the building. Oh, she's a vision of beauty. Oh, she's so gorgeous. His heart starts to beat faster. Feels like it's going to explode in his chest. His mouth gets a little bit dry. His palms get a little bit sweaty, and he's a little bit nervous. She walks up. She says, well, hi, Joe. He bows real graciously. He smiles as she approaches him, and just as she gets up close, he says, may I please have a date with you? She said, Joe? Is that you? Joe, did you say that? Would you mind just saying that one more time, Joe? He smiled real big, thrust out his chest real big, and put them shoulders back and said, may I please have a date with you? As all the preacher boys fainted in the bushes. She said, Joe, Have you been practicing? Have you been practicing just so you could ask me for a date? You see, what they didn't know was Joe had a dream, and he wasn't lazy. That's the key. If you got a dream and you're not lazy, you can get there. That was the key. See, Joe didn't let life steal his dream. You want to talk about life being unfair to you? Some of us, that life has been unfair to us, you can't see it right out in the open. But every time Joe opened his mouth, everybody knew that life had been unfair to him. Life had been very unfair to Joe, but he didn't let life steal his dream. And people were cruel to Joe, but he didn't let people steal his dream. And time, it took a lot of time, because what Joe did, that he didn't let time steal his dream, he had to be by himself while all of his buddies are out playing football, out playing basketball, out going getting a milkshake, out bowling, doing whatever. Joe is by himself in his dormitory room, staring at the mirror, practicing hour after hour. May I please have a date with you? May I please have a date? And he practiced hour after hour after hour after hour. He didn't let time steal his dream. He was willing to put in the time because the dream was big enough. And he had finally achieved it. And she said, Joe, have you been practicing just so you could ask me for a date? And Joe said, I do have for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. I've been practicing and practicing and practicing and practicing. You see, that was the only thing he had learned how to say was, may I please have a date with you? And she said, yes, Joe. Anybody who will work that hard just to ask me for a date, yes, you can have a date with me. And today, Joe is a preacher, and he's married to the most beautiful girl on campus. Isn't that great? Now, the reason I told you that story is to sum up what we've talked about tonight. That the reason God gave us the ability to dream is not just so we would dream, but so we'd do something about it.